and he is the champion. Ryan is the champion.
Ring the
Welcome
bell, baby.
to another Roundtable of Wraith Deck Tech video. This time featuring none other than Mr. Ryan Wegner himself, who just won our local skirmish event, which featured was a Blitz event. So today we figured why not give Ryan the praise he deserves. Golf clap, everybody. And then also go over the deck that he used to win in the event. Maybe he can talk about some of the things he played against. And yeah, so we have our first Roundtable of Wraith team member to take down and win an event. Side note, Mark got third place and I got fourth place. So three of the five of us got in the top four. Chris was there, he did a good job, and then Bob couldn't participate. But enough about myself and those scrubs. We are here for the meat and potatoes that is Dorinthea. So let's say, Ryan, why in this Monarch meta did you choose to go with Dorinthea at this event?
So it's kind of a twofold answer. The first being, you were whipping my ass when I was on chain, and so I was convinced. If you were to ask me a week ago what deck I was taking to these events, I was taking chain, 100%. And then through testing, and that's what good teams and teammates are for. I felt that I had a very good person that was going to both of those events running a deck that I was not comfortable running into, that being you. And I made the switch, and the only other deck that I really kind of felt gave me a really decent chance against everybody, similar to why you played Bravo. The deck that I thought, really didn't have a bad matchup on paper was Dorinthea. I love playing Bolton. Prism's probably my favorite hero in the game, but I just knew that she just can't play in Blitz, or just not effectively. I'm sure she's going to win some events, but just not consistent enough. And Bolton, I just don't have enough reps against everybody to feel comfortable. And that's another, he's also, I don't feel comfortable with the Chain matchup either. Like, I think me and you both realized early that we had to beat Chain. He was like public enemy number one. And I just felt if I had a shot with Dory with Chain, then I could maneuver out of some of the other matchups. So yeah, I just decided to bring her because I think she just gave me the best matchup into the field, and she was also a good matchup into you. And I knew how great you pilot Bravo.
Well, you can stop giving me the praise, but I
I mean,
appreciate
that's genuine. That's genuine. Yeah, it is genuine.
So I would agree. I think it was a good decision. Plus, you've had great experience with her in the past. What I do want to talk about first is the equipment. Now, as I'm looking at it and you're looking at it too, it doesn't look like Monarch changed any of your equipment decisions. Is there anything in the 11 suite of equipment that you feel you want to talk about, or why any of these decisions were made?
Not particularly. It's not like that drastic. Never run Tunic, so I just have Tunic in there just because it's there and I had an extra slot. Um, Gambler's gloves are only there for KO or Kaio, however you say that. Do not run Gambler's gloves against Reinar. That's a trap. You need the block. Let him roll his six on his pants if he's going to roll that and take that chance. Um, but your main loadout is going to be skull cap, Brave Forge bracers, courage, and then the refraction bolters. I did run into one Kano this weekend, and I ran refraction bolters and then gloves, hood, and robe. So I ran Null Rune 3 against Kano with refraction bolters, and um, had it was a pretty solid game for me, I would say. He didn't really get any big combos off. So yeah, the skullcap, Brave Forge bracers, courage, and then refraction is your base, and don't really venture off from that. Don't run tunic. and then run. I would say null rune 3. Biggest thing I want to say about equipment, for you people that are interested about the chain matchup, I don't run null rune against chain. The Ironically, over the weekend, I lost one game in the two skirmishes to Chain, and that was the only game that I ran null rune against him. I was 3-1 otherwise against Chain, and the 3 wins that I had, I did not run null rune.
What
So
piece did you
uh,
pick? Was it head?
it was the head, yeah, and I regret it. So don't run null rune against Chain. Just race him, beat him down, and more often than not, with his awkward blocks and stuff, you have a good shot of at least getting him down to a range where he's not comfortable with. And I think 2 of those wins I won because I was able to block out and he blood deaded himself. So keep that in mind. If you feel comfortable with the null rune, I get it, but I don't think Dorinthea really wants to be pitching her cards inefficiently, and
You need to
oftentimes
keep your
chain,
hand.
yeah, chain makes you do that. So go null rune.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, pretty standard Dorinthea equipment setup there.
Yeah.
We're going to get going because there are some interesting choices in here and some Monarch additions. So, the first card that you can see on your screen is you run 2 red and 2 blue Iron Songs. Why the red? Well, I think the reds speak for themselves. Why the blues?
Um, their blues are mainly there for pitch and block, like blue pitch, 0 cost, block for 3. That's usually pretty much what you're looking for in Warrior. Uh, there are very few times like where you might have one in your hand, um, and an opponent blocks for 6. Say you're attacking for 6, and an opponent blocks for 6, and like let's say you have like Red Warrior's Valor and Dawnblade Swing, and you just have this. This is your last option. It's not horrible. Um, but this is not. You're really not fielding this in your deck for like an attack reaction. It's
It's
not what
the
that's there for.
ultimate. It's the ultimate Dorinthea bluff card.
This is the one I think that gets people thinking the most, especially if you have a card in Arsenal. I've noticed you especially because you've played a lot of Dorinthea, but a lot of people, this is the first one that they think about. Like, oh, no energy floating. Okay, well, he could have an Iron Song. So, like, oftentimes the threat of this, especially late game, if you like have 2 reds that you haven't played yet and you're still in your deck, the threat of this leads to some really awkward decisions for your opponent. It's also a
I
great card to go get with
yeah.
uh, Singing
Singing.
Steelblade. Yeah.
All right, so then interesting new Monarch card here, Majestic Nourishing Emptiness. Did you get it off? Do you like it? How'd it feel?
Uh, this over this weekend is probably the MVP of the deck. Between this and Red Overpower, I guess Twinning Blade, given the circumstances that I played Twinning Blade, but we'll get there. Uh, this card was absolutely insane. It overperformed. Like when we tested, we knew this card was good. This weekend, it just overperformed. It confirmed my. I think it's controversial. Not controversial. It's a weird word to say, but I think a lot of Dorinthea lists are only going to run one of these, um, because effectively the second one is dead. Like if you block with this, then the other copy is just dead. But I loved the 2 because I wanted to see this card every single game. Um, it won me the championship game, or the game that got me the first place game. So against the IRA, I was able to get this off. Um,
It
and the
beat
utility
me.
for this is great. Yeah, it beat you too. The utility for this is like, let's say I play a Spoils of War, so I have Go Again automatically, or I play a Hit and Run, or I play a Glint, or I have a Glint in my hand. A lot of times your opponent is always going to assume that you're swinging with Dawnblade again. So if I play a Spoils, they can say like, okay, you're coming at me for 5, I'm gonna block with 9, and I'm gonna force you to have 2D reacts or 2 attack reacts. But in reality, you're like, okay, you just wasted 3 cards to block this. Now I play Nourishing. It's dominated already, and you only have 1 card in hand, so you pretty much cannot block this. So now their turn is basically wasted, because they either block this and don't want to take the full 6, and then you get a full 5 cards next turn. Dorinthea with 4 cards is insane. Dorinthea with 5 cards is untouchable. So I am a strong advocate of running both of these in your deck. If you want to cut one because the second one is effectively dead, it doesn't pitch for yellow. It's a bad red pitch, but I wanted to see this every single game, and it closed me out a ton of games. And even the games that it didn't close out, it hit pretty much every single game, and then it led me to the turn that I got to close out. Because, like I said, if you arsenal a card after this, and now Dorinthea gets to play with a 6-card hand, you're gonna win the game.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, it's even better after an Iron Song turn, like happening after, because early they might have their equipment to help them out, but like anybody who plays Dorinthea and wants to save their equipment for like an Iron Song. So if you determination, right? And so like if you determination, you probably get them to spend their equipment, and then later in the game, this can like just be like you said, you go with the sword, you get go again, you play this, it's insane.
It's devastating. It is devastating, and I think that, you know, once this card starts becoming more mainstream than it already is, people are going to start having, like, they're going to have to start playing around this card.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next 2 cards, because I want to lump these 2 together, because we got some attack reactions, common ones we've seen in Dorinthea before. You got Out for Blood, reds and blues, and Overpowers, red for blues. Did anything stand out to you, or was it these cards as we know them?
Just as we know them, they're not. I mean, they're both tremendous. I mean, you can even throw in the Stroke of Foresight. We can skip ahead and lump all 3 of those together because they're all pretty much effectively the same thing. They're plus the strokes and the Out for Bloods are +3s. The red ones are for no reprise. You don't have to have reprise. You just pay 1 for +3, which is incredibly strong when your opponents aren't blocking. Out for Bloods are great because if you do have go again, they give the next sword swing a +1, so you have a higher chance to get that counter on you, which is fantastic. Overpower is the red Overpower overperformed today specifically. I think I told you in the first 3 rounds I played it 6 times, so I got it off twice. The red ones in both games, which is I've never done that before. It single-handedly won my first game against a chain player who didn't realize that the reprise was +2, and so I was able to go over the top of him for exact lethal, and I was behind in that game. And then the other couple games that I got this off, it was just blowout. So yeah, if you can play red Overpower, I know it's a 3 cost, so sometimes it's pretty intensive, but if you have the opportunity to play it, it is just a game shifter. And usually your opponent can't account for 6 additional damage for 1 card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it killed me. It was rough against me today. And for the record, I ran into Ryan in Swiss. He beat me. Then I ran into him in the top 4 cut, and he beat me. So
that was the top
4 of my 2 losses today. I lost once to you in Swiss, once to you in the top cut, and then me and Mark just played for fun as like a third or fourth game, which I lost. But all right, so
that wasn't on record though.
No, it wasn't on record. But so we covered the kind of the basic pumper cards that you see. However, in the top right corner, you'll see a really interesting. Is that Plow Through?
It is Plow Through.
What made you go with 1 red Plow Through?
So this was kind of my own personal little techie option here, and this is a new Monarch card, and this is very similar to like a Dauntless spot. So like if you're familiar with Dauntless with the +1 D reacts, I liked the idea of having a pseudo Bolton ability. So if you defend with an attack action card, which again, a lot of what I was thinking about when constructing this was against Chain. And so a lot of what he's going to be blocking with are attack reactions, because a lot of his non-attacks block for 2. And Dorinthea she just feasts on 2 blocks. And so the Plow Through, if you're defending with an attack react, it gets the Dawnblade or whatever sword you're swinging with +1 until the end of the turn, including that chain link. So like if I were to pair this with like a sharpened steel and swing Dawnblade for 9, and then he defends with like 3 cards and one of them's a attack react or attack action, I'm sorry. Then at that chain becomes a 10, and then Dawnblade also gets a +1 for the remainder of the turn. So if you to pair it with a glint, if you were to pair it with the refraction bolters, that one carries over, which is incredibly strong in Dorinthea. Because if you can get that second swing, if you get that above that 3 threshold and force them to overblock or block with equipment, then you're doing something incredibly, or you're just doing well. So, yeah, I really liked Plow Through. Was not as impactful as Nourishing, but I would keep this in the deck. I would not go to Dauntless. Um, just given the current meta with Chain running about, and then I probably would not go up to 2 of these. I would keep it at 1. I liked the 1 cost. I would keep it at 1.
Well, that adds the Monarch editions out of the way. So next is kind of your standard, more so of things that we've seen from Dory in the past.
Right.
Spoils. We don't really have to talk more about spoils than people probably already know. I'm sure you love playing it. It's outstanding. 2 pump off for sure. Go again. Same thing with Sharpened Steel. I think a lot of people know it's just a pump 3 prior. Let's talk about her first specialization here, and that's Steelblade Supremacy. How did you play this card today in a way that, or what kind of plays, or what do you try to set up when you play Steelblade?
So you always want to have Go Again with Steelblade, or a way to get Go Again, or basically a way to guarantee Go Again. You want that +2 because Steelblade differs from Spoils in a way that the +2 lingers the whole turn. So if you were to just play this and then attack and they fully block and you can't attack with Dawnblade again, you wasted potentially 5 extra damage, which just feels so bad. So obviously the dream is pairing it with Iron Song Determination, so you can have 6 dominate, and every time you hit, you draw a card, and that's the perfect like refraction boltery turn. But I found myself this weekend pairing it a lot with Spoils of War and Glint, and so you want to just continue to go wide with this. So set this up. Don't just play it every time you draw it, but be patient with it. That's the best you can do with it.
Mm-hmm. I think you did a good job setting that up, especially with Spoils. Like you said, you did that against me, and it was insanely tough, especially with drawing a card. Feels so bad. You got 1 route. Why the 1 route?
Route is one of those cards where it's like, Route's really good when it has to be really good. But when Route's not like needed, Route's like terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really good in like late game, but like I think I drew it in my first hand, probably like maybe 3 games this weekend, and in which case it's just easy. Here you go, block this out. I don't need it anymore. So yeah, route. I would not. Route's just so clock. 2 cost is so bad. Yes, the effect is lovely. It's fantastic, but like early game it basically does nothing because like they're like, okay, I'm gonna take an extra 3 damage or an extra 6 damage, but I still have 14 health or whatever it is. So yeah, it's just so awkward.
It's kind of a closer, and if you don't get it in that closing situation, then
yeah, it's a nut card at the end, but she has so many ways to get to the end of the game that it's like you're not reliant on it.
I would agree. All right, up next we got 2 tried and true Dory cards, Singing Steelblade and Iron Song Determination. Anything you want to touch base on those?
Singing led to some really awesome plays this weekend. Finding red overpowers, which a lot of people think that when you go Singing, you're just going to grab Iron Song Response, and then you're going to have the extra +3. But, you know, if it can get sneaky. If you're playing this from the arsenal and you have a blue tucked in your hand or something like that, and you can go find that overpower red, the +6 is something that no one accounts for. And so Singing Steelblade is just an absolute fantastic card. Try to play it as efficiently as possible. I don't want to say don't because I did it this weekend and against Sam playing Reinar. I had to play it very inefficiently, and I didn't get the reprise trigger, but it allowed me to get a token on Dawnblade. I believe that's why I played it. But otherwise, I would absolutely hold this card in your arsenal until you're able to get the reprise trigger. Which, if you're playing Dorinthea, more often than not, someone's going to block you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just always have a good idea. Singing Steelblade is one of those cards where having deck knowledge is very important because you have to know how many copies of what card you have left. Um, I mean, when I first started playing her, there were often times where I would play it and then I'd go for the Iron Song and then realize that both of them were in my graveyard and just be kind of shit out of luck. So, a play that I have pulled off is singing Steelblade into singing Steelblade. That's a thing. And depending on how much damage you need to chip through, sometimes that extra one is something. So, yeah, it's just so damn flexible. Play both of them. And then Iron Song Determination. Is this your favorite card
Yeah, it's insanely good.
um, Iron Song Determination is insanely good, but it's also one of those cards that you have to set up. You can't afford to waste this card when you are playing it. Um, patience, like sometimes you're down 7 health, and you have this card in your arsenal, or you've kept it in your hand for whatever reason. You have to have a reason to play this card. It can't just be play Iron Song, swing Dawnblade. I love it. The dream is playing it with Steelblade Supremacy. I also love it with Warriors Valor Red. I love it with Spoils. I love it with Sharpened Steel. Just make sure you have a reason to play this card. Don't just play it and then swing Dawnblade. It
seems like it's dominate for the whole turn, so Twinning Blade would be insane.
Did that happen today?
I think it did. I don't know. Here's what I'll say. Those two cards are extremely flexible, and kind of like you said, you might be down in health, but Dorinthea can close a gap in the blink of an eye. I was going to ask you, before we talk about the last couple of cards here, were the chain people blocking, or were they just going fire for fire?
Everybody that I ran to had Husk, and so they were pretty reliant on Husk to kind of take away some turns. So, like, I was very adamant on making their Husk plays very inefficient. So, like, if I was gonna play a Sharpened Steel, I tried to make sure that I had Out for Blood or Stroke as well, so that I knew that I can get up to 9.
Yeah.
Or I would get them as close to 13 as possible, and then swing Dawnblade for 3, knowing that they would be below 13, but they would have to overblock for the 6, and then I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of them were blocking. I mean, for the most part.
Yeah, I was interested to see that, like if they would block, or if they would let you kind of go the route of, sure, you can get a counter because on my turn I'm gonna dish 8 right back and see how.
I mean, we
goes.
can talk about specific matchups or just overall feel at the end. But I think a lot of people, and this isn't any discredit to the people that we played this weekend or I played, but I just think a lot of people have a hard time playing against Dorinthea, and I think that's pretty common across the board.
Yeah.
And so the blocking wasn't ideal, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the times that I've had my most success against her is when, ironically, I would just play Azalea and be like, all right, I'm not going to block anything. I'm just going to, like, just shoot back at you and try to go tall as well. Anyways, Moving on. We got 2 one-ofs. One of Twinning Blade, one of Energy Potion. And then 4 tried and true Warriors Valors, the 2 red and 2 blues. Of those cards, is there anything you want to touch base about?
No, Energy Potion is just there for, like, if you have to block out or if you go first and you have it in your hand. It's it's just a great card. It's a very easy pitch. 3 resources. If you can play it, you play it. Um, so yeah, I would never cut energy potion. I would also stick at 1. Warrior's Valor is critical.
Mm-hmm.
I would consider running the yellows, but I don't know what else I would cut. But this card, it it's a pressure card, um, because your opponent does not want you to get that go again, so they feel that they have to block. And if anytime your opponent feels like they have to block against you, you're in good shape, because usually you're, like I said, you're pairing it with one of the many attack reacts that you have in your hand or deck, and then just anything else you could
Anytime
potentially
you
have.
play, anytime you can do a Red Warrior's Valor into swing, the person across from you is either gonna take all the heat or they're gonna block 9. There's no one
Yeah.
that's gonna lay out the 6 and be like and think that that's all that's gonna happen.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so if you as Dorinthea, or if you're digging 3 cards out of their hand, eventually you're going to get through that defense, which is it's just great. So yeah, Red Warriors Valor is fantastic. I
Hmm.
actually played Blue Warriors Valor today as well for the threat. Um, Equally as effective. They
Yeah,
have to
just threaten that
overblock.
go again. Yeah.
And
Twinning
then
blade.
twinning.
Yeah.
Yeah, twinning is twinning is a magical card. It allows you to do things that even if an opponent like my favorite utility of this card is like if you have spoils or hit and run, which we'll get to, but if you play spoils and then your opponent's like, well, I want to shut down your turn, and they overblock, you actually play twinning. You already have to go again, and you can swing Dawnblade again, and then if you have somehow gain go again from refraction boulders, you can actually swing a 3rd time because then Dorinthea's ability triggers, and you can continue to go wider given the resources and stuff like that. But twinning actually is the only reason I beat you in our semifinal matchup.
Hmm.
You crushed me with a crush confidence, so I was unable to get Dorinthea's text box, but I had a 20 blade arsenaled, and so I was able to give that or allow it. Think I had I don't know if it was spoils or whatever it was, but I was able to attack with Dawnblade again, which forced you to block, which then swung the matchup and the momentum back in my favor, which
Hmm.
ultimately led me to winning. So
Yeah, I was doing
this is
good until then too.
you were killing. I mean, this is I only run
Mm-hmm.
once, so I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the fact that I had it there, if I didn't draw it and I didn't have it on that turn, I would have lost the game, and you would have had this beautiful playmat. I'd be interviewing you right now. So,
I probably would have
uh,
lost to the Ira guy, but either way.
no, no, man, confidence. But yeah, the 20 blade 2 is pretty awkward, but 1 is fantastic. Also searchable via singing steel blade, so keep that in mind.
Um, classic blue pitch, glint the Quicksilver.
Best card in the
Um,
deck.
why do you think that?
Just go again whenever you need it, and
Yeah,
also pitch blue if you need it. So yeah, we don't have to. I'm sure there are
people
thousands of
know.
Dorinthia
Yeah,
videos out there. Yeah, Glint, it's the best card in the deck.
hit and runs blue because you probably don't care about the red or yellow because you're never using the buff part.
Never using the buff part. Mostly using this for pitch. I think I played it a couple times. This is a good card to trick your opponent into thinking that you have more than you have. And what I mean by that is if I had a nourishing emptiness set up, I would love to play this card first, and then just pitch like a blue and swing Dawnblade. And so now I have 2 floating, like 2 cards in hand, a card in arsenal, whatever it might be. And then they're thinking like, oh my god, like he's only coming at me for 3. Clearly he has more than that in his hand. But all the relevant text on there is go again. I don't need anything else. And so then they overblock that, and then it's like, okay, my go again action is nourishing emptiness. 6 dominate. If it hits, I get 5 cards.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, shit. So this is one of those setups where it kind of punks your opponent out a little bit, where they think that you're going to have more than you actually have. But in reality, nourishing is just a badass card.
Final 2 cards. One D react the Steelblade Shunt. Go ahead and tell them how that was critical today.
The shunt, it was very irrelevant in pretty much all my matchups. I think I played it against you actually, which
Yeah, you
prevented
did.
me
There,
from getting
there was like,
crushed.
yeah, and I was like, of course you have. your one to react now.
Yeah, the one card that I ran, but the bread and butter was I got Ira in the championship match. I got Ira down to 1 health. He had one card in his hand. I think it was like 7-1, and I drew my shunt on the first hand, and I arsenaled it after the turn, and I held it there the whole time. And I got him down to 1 health after like a nourishing turn, and he just swung with Kadachi, thinking he was going to get it through. I think he said he was planning on his second thing was going to be a command and conquer for 7, which would have complicated matters. But I had shunt and he didn't have a sigil, so I beat him on the shunt.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was a cool way to end the tournament. I'll say that.
And then finally, you can talk about the Heart of Fendal, but I also want you to recommend something to us peasants
Sure.
who don't have it.
You had one. You
I had
sold
one.
it.
I sold it because I'm
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah. Yeah, this card is fine. It's like a luxury. You don't it doesn't really do much. I think total this weekend I might have gained health with it 3 times. Um, it's not that great. It's better in an Ira meta. That's what it's there for. It like makes up for those Kadachi pokes, and then you'll know you'll have this, and you'll be like, oh hey, I gained health. Um, if you don't have it, I would probably run either another energy potion or probably another shunt of some sort. It could be a red shunt.
Hmm.
I'd stick with blue shunt. Um, but yeah, you definitely do not need the Heart of Fendal if you don't have it. It's like I said, it's more of a luxury, and it really, for what it's worth, doesn't do a hell of a lot, especially now that Ira's kind of not a thing. So, yeah, you don't have to have it. It's cool. It's swaggy, I guess, but
All
it's
right,
not
so
it did not win me anything.
no, of course not, but it's swaggy.
Yeah.
All the swag. So here's what I'm gonna do, Ryan, if you don't mind.
Yep.
If you could make this list public, or do what you can, maybe
Is
call
it
it
not?
like. No, I don't know or not, but I'm saying if you make it, maybe call it like ROR Dory Blitz first or something, and then
Yeah.
I will provide the link to this deck list in the description below. So if you want to try to be like Ryan, and you want to really frustrate some people and get into their head and play some mind games with them, run the classic Dory because she is still strong. Now, it is an expensive deck. If you got all the stuff, then you've probably been playing her for a while anyway. If you're new to the game, you probably are going to have a hard time trying to conjure up all this stuff because she is a class that is expensive because warrior is very popular. So if you can get the cards, go for it. If not, hey, try it anyway. Run like a budgeted version. So we will link this in the description. Again, congrats, Ryan, on your dub today.
Do we want to talk about matchups?
I was gonna
or do
say,
we wanna-
how about we'll keep it really relatively short. I don't want to go too much longer. We're already at like 30-something minutes.
Okay.
Give me like hardest matchups and some things that you might anything you feel about your matchups. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say just generally speaking, Chain is probably public enemy number one. I think a lot of decks have to attack against him, especially in this format. And just race him. Don't like if you're worried about the husk, if he can pop it early, that's a win for you. Don't worry about him, doing a bunch of stuff. I don't recommend running Null Rune. Let him do things. You have plenty of equipment block. And so with the Null Rune, you're probably going to go below health. So you'll have Skullcap to block for 2. You have everything that you have 7 equipment blocks. So that'll carry you a long way. And yeah, just be cognizant of how much blood debt that he's accumulating. If you can't beat him straight up, then make him beat himself. That's pretty much as easy as it gets. Bravo was pretty prevalent this weekend. Day 2, there were a lot less. Day 1, there were a lot more. And Bravo is just be aware of the crush effects that are pretty debilitating to you. Spinals, crippling, of course, and save your equipment for the dominated turns. Don't try to get rid of those early. Other than that, I only saw that one Ira, and he was, or Ira, I guess, is a girl. So
Do
Ira,
you think Prism could have been a problem?
Prism was probably a bad matchup for me.
But you didn't play
Another,
against any, did you?
I did not
No.
know. Another tough matchup that I had was against Sam. He ran Reinhardt Claws, and that was a great matchup. He was beating me for a while, and then I had just really fortunate draws where I had back-to-back Iron Song determinations, and kind of putting a lot of hand pressure on him. He also whiffed on Reckless Swing twice, and I finished with 2 health, so it was a pretty fortunate matchup. So that one was tough. I know Reinhardt's usually kind of 50-50, especially Reinhardt Claws. He didn't get Blood Rush off, which is helpful. Um, yeah, I Prism would have been tough. I'm glad I didn't run into any of her, but like again, Prism's like so awkward in Blitz that I didn't really, filter her into my decisions of
Yeah.
what I was going to include in the deck.
Um, and then before we wrap this up, shout out to Fair Game Downers Grove, Illinois,
Dude,
for hosting
yes,
the in real life event. We had a blast.
they ran a great tournament,
Yeah,
fantastic
they
tournament.
really did.
It was their first one for Flesh and Blood, and Graham was the kind of the TO, and he was on top of everything. I mean, obviously we are very familiar with them. Eric did a great job. He was very generous with giving us all waters and stuff like that. So, yeah, he it was very accommodating and just an amazing store. And also, personally, I'd like to give a shout out to the little community that we've kind of built over the last couple of months. The store today was kind of buzzing. Everyone was happy because it was the first kind of in real life tournament that we've all gotten to since the restrictions are kind
Yeah.
of being peeled back. So it was awesome to see everybody, and everyone just seems like very supportive and cool, and everyone wants to chat. So I really like what we've got going here.
Yeah, I was gonna say anybody who talked to us, met us, and kind of shot the shit with us. We appreciate it. You probably saw me get frustrated at some of my
You?
results, but yeah, come on.
No,
You'll be
no.
surprised, right? But we did have fun. Everybody that we met this weekend, we want to thank. Let's keep growing it. Let's keep making it bigger. And thank you for supporting us in our channel. And with that being said, I think we are peacing out. So I am Jim. That is El Champion, Ryan. And the Round Table of Wraith is out.